Right, welcome back to Talking Mental Health with Leon Ruri, part 2. Leon, go for it. Where were we? I think we're talking about communication on site. But one thing I want to ask you, meditation on site, how much is this getting implemented now? I know it should be, I believe, and it could be nice at a pre-start instead of learning blah, 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 to do a quick 10 minutes of, all right, everyone, let's get focused. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's an interesting approach, in the way that they sort of the conversation around meditation. On a couple of my sessions, and that actually at different times, I'll actually do a short sort of breathing exercise and meditation exercise, but that's more really centered around me just trying to shape the energy and the listening inside of the room. It just sort of depends on what comes up at different times. You can see if the energy is sort of really out of balance inside of the room, and given the underground approach too, for those that work in the underground industry, you'll know that they a lot of their structures are geared around, let's get the meetings done, let's get down the hole and stuff like that. And so what I find when I go into workplaces and where the leadership haven't effectively communicated that we're going to be on site, is that a lot of the crews are unaware that you're stepping into the room, and then they're ready to go. As opposed to being there to listen. So we'll use meditation lightly. I've used open heart meditation. It's certainly, I'm not sure how effective it would be as an approach to start work. It's definitely a practice, I think, around the mind that they would, have a practice in place for after work or definitely before work. I know a lot of people like doing meditation when they rise, to be able to master their thoughts and to get the body settled, to see where they're actively moving forward. But it's definitely a practice that is one that's great for mental well-being and our mental health and stuff like that. So it'd be great if we could see that implemented more. I know with our exercise prevention stuff with Sano, at different times the guys are doing meditation as part of that inclusion into being able to manage their physical health and that as well too. But it's definitely an approach. I think sort of all ideas like that are ideas that we should be looking to implement inside of the industry, Alana, because there's certainly things that work effectively outside of the industry.
Definitely.
So, what works effectively is that it's a practice that humans practice. So we're all humans. We're not sort of robots or machines inside of this industry. So if it's certainly something that can enhance positive mental well-being, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, definitely. And a mate of mine that I was speaking to yesterday, now his partner actually committed suicide last year, which is pretty devastating. He is obviously is still devastated by this. And one of the ways that he ended up going to the doctor, and they put his partner on medication. And basically when after unfortunately his partner committed suicide, he had to look through everything that was on the medication. It was may cause suicidal tendencies, blah blah blah, all this sort of stuff. What's your take on medication when dealing with mental health problems like depression and anxiety and stuff like that?
Oh, it's definitely something that we have to use to be able to manage our mental well-being. And I know it's can be, I suppose, a controversial conversation around medication and mental health, to use it as a means. There's lots of different sort of opinions based around that. But one of the things that I've seen is that there is absolutely a space for medication to be used to manage people's mental well-being. Those of our friends and that are on this side of ours and that are going to watch this video will agree, because there's many that are on anti-anxiety medication, antidepressants, some of them on antipsychotics, bipolar medication and whatnot, to be able to manage their ADHD and stuff like that. So medication definitely works. There's no question around that. How effective it is at different times will be determined by the right medication and the right dosage that we need. Those are a couple of things that I'm connected to, because when I was on Barrow Island there for a time there towards the end of the project, or towards the end of my time up there, I was suffering depression. A lot of that was to do with my lifestyle choices. My body was just shutting down. I was finding that I was crying uncontrollably. My mind was all over the place. My relationship was going south. I had a relationship with a girlfriend up there, and that was going pear-shaped. I'd already had stuff that I was trying to manage with my children. So my controlling mechanisms, coping mechanisms, were ones where I'd get on the piss and use drugs and whatnot. and it started to affect me. So I went on antidepressants, had the conversation with the doctor. And one of the things that I realized for me is it made me really, really tired and really, really hungry. So I had to have conversations around the types, the right dosage of medication. Thankfully for me, I got some things in order around my lifestyle choices at that time. Not that I stopped them, but I definitely, it stopped my emotions going really up and really down. You know, I'd find I could be talking here, be in a great mood, get off this call and then just break down uncontrollably and wondering what was going on with me. So I had a conversation with a family member that had been on them, and he said it stops that up and down and sort of makes it go on this sort of plane. That's definitely something that I experienced. And however, as you rightly point out, Alana, is that, you know, the side effect of these is that it can cause the exact thing that you're trying to avoid. So it's important for us to have these conversations around whether the medication is the right medication, how long you're on the medication. We're not to think that a one size fits all, or because you've been given medication today, then it's over and done with. What people don't powerfully do is that they don't put structures of support in around people. So even for somebody that might be in a conversation about whether they need medication right now, there's nothing wrong with that. I actually open this conversation up in all my sessions, and I share the fact that there's people in our, they call it the burn cup family, and that are on medication. I actually had a guy that was schizophrenic. He's a foreman, you know, so he's in a senior role, and he openly said, "Look, I'm schizophrenic." He spent over a month in Greylands at one stage of his life. He realised what affects him. He's able to manage it. There's another young fellow that I spoke to just in South Australia a couple of weeks ago. He's bipolar. He's managing his lifestyle with medication. You know, but the conversation always has to remain around making sure that the dosage is right, the medication's the right medication, but ensuring that you have a support structure around your family and friends. And, you know, these are the sorts of things that sort of present challenges towards people because of the stigma that is there around people taking medication. I know for me, I was embarrassed about admitting it. I took it at the time, you know, when I was still with my girlfriend at that time, only she knew and the doctor, and it was something that I tried to keep a secret, and I didn't want people to know. But for us to normalize these things and to remove that stigma, we have to share these stories about people being on medication. It is definitely a way and a time. I think ultimately, you know, the goal is that you wouldn't want to be on medication long term, but it's certainly by no rights my right to determine what is good for a person and what is not. The encouragement is always just to make sure that they check with their GP. But I think just as importantly too, Alana, is that they have those conversations with their support structures around them, with their families, with their partners, even with their workplaces. You'd be amazed at how many people in leadership are on medication these days. And that's important because we don't want people dealing with sort of mental health episodes where it stops them from going to work, you know, and they would rather stay away, and it compounds things. And, you know, that's things that then cause further spirals. We're committed to having this conversation a bit about mental health and saying that we're a stand for the way that this conversation's had and the way that we then communicate with people in life and allow them to be, then this is all part of that conversation. We have to normalize these things to realize that if we're going to open this up, then we've got to expect that people are going to share with us that they're on medications. And if that's what they're doing, then we've got to look as employers, especially, what's the structure that I can put in place, which is not only the best place for that individual, the best structure for the team, for the company, for their family, and for everybody included. These are the types of conversation that I was touching on earlier about development of communication and completing conversations. This is all part of it. This is just another conversation that has to take place. And as we're seeing, mental health is going to have the biggest impact on businesses. It's already, the effect is around $3.7 billion already each and every year on the FIFO industry. So it's not a conversation that's going away anytime soon.
Yeah. All right. And what about back in the Barrow days, as you might know, you know, 4 mid-strength beers, yet it wasn't that hard to get more than 4, just between you and I, right? So let's talk about...
I don't know what you're talking about, Lana. I don't know what they're doing at top screen there.
Yeah. Anyway, right, the new limits that they're bringing in, right, across a lot of the mine sites now, do you think it's actually going to make a positive change in the industry, or do you think people are just going to find sponos like Barrow?
Oh, look, they're going to find, sponsors and everything to do those sorts of things. It's interesting because we just had this conversation on a site that I was over in South Australia, and it's a huge site, and they've brought limits in 6 cans, and they all get opened at the bar. You can no longer take a 6-pack back to your room.
Yeah.
You can't take a wine back to your room. They've got bottles of wine that they're able to take back there, no longer able to do that. They've got a 2-can limit back to the room, not allowed to stockpile more than 4. People are kicking up, and some of the sessions that we're creating, and I'm asking what's there for you, they're pissed off because they're like, this is our industry, this is what we do, this is what we like to do to relax. And I'm a non-drinker now, but by no means is it my right to say that, oh, because I don't drink, then you shouldn't drink, or hey, well, at least you're still having beers. And one of the conversations that come up out of one of the sessions was a good point and a valid point, was that, hey, I like to get my beers. I don't like to drink at the bar with a whole lot of people. At the end of the day, I want to get my 6-pack. I want to be able to go back and talk to my family. I talk to my wife, or I talk to my children. We should be allowed that opportunity. Some of us don't like drinking in social settings. And these are all things, again, when we're talking about the conversation about mental health and that, hey, social anxiety and stuff like this, people can function with it and still work with it. So these are considerations that I think need to be taken into consideration around that sort of conversation. These people there are really pissed off. And, what I said to them is that what you need to do is you need to be able to structure a conversation that is reflective of the points that you're sharing about how it impacts you in a negative way, because the changes that are happening there, and sadly to a degree, I mean, if you read the play, the way that it's going with this inquiry around sexual misconduct and sexual assaults, with a lot of it coming down to the fact that alcohol is present, is that eventually, I hate to say it, but we're going to end up with sites that are dry sites. So there'll be no alcohol. And it's sad in a way, because it's the few that spoils it for the many. Always. And I don't necessarily agree. Like I say, I don't drink alcohol, but I don't agree with the fact that because the few spoil it for the many, then it gets wiped out for everybody. I don't think that's an effective approach too, as well. It's conversations. They make valid points. I want a couple of beers to take back to my family, and to have some drinks, and these are all considerations. Hey, people that have addictions around alcohol and that, or any type of addictions, are going to find ways and means to be able to,
of course,
to source more. We saw that on Barrow Island. I'll put my hand up and say I've done it many times, where you go and get somebody to sponsor. Out there, as you know, we had 4 beers, and you go and find somebody else that'll sponsor you 4 beers and stuff like that. And I didn't share with the ways that they sort of can stockpile them, and that's not a conversation that I shared because I don't want to encourage that sort of stuff. But look, it's an ongoing conversation, but it's in part, the importance of what we talked about earlier around the sexual misconduct side of things, is that if alcohol is present, which they're clearly identifying that alcohol is a big factor in a lot of those sexual assaults or sexual harassment cases, and that is that they'll end up just removing alcohol, which if we were to put it into a workplace context, Alana, if there was something that was unsafe or making things unsafe, be it a particular product or a particular type of equipment or a particular way that we go about things, they remove it by elimination. That's the sort of the hierarchy of control in the industry when it comes to safety. So if these things are going to continue to show up with alcohol, eventually they're just going to get rid of it altogether. So
and that's the tough thing, like you say, a small element just ruins it for everyone. And sometimes it's good to, like I found anyway, after work, go to the wedding, have a chat with mates who are maybe not on your crew, so you're not just talking about work all the time, blow off some steam and whatever. Like everyone's got their own thing, and not saying go over to the wedding and get absolutely hammered, or blow numbers the next day. But I think there's got to be that common sense factor that comes into that as well. But obviously, if alcohol's the key catalyst for all of these assaults and whatever happening, I believe there's other ways, though. You know what I mean? Like, where's security monitoring these guys getting absolutely smashed? Or what's going on? There's so many different other ways, and there's apps as well that females can get on their phone, which are sound the alarms. But interesting points anyway, Leon.
Yeah, look, and to a degree, it shouldn't really have to fall on security to monitor how much piss I drink if I'm a drinker. It really, the onus comes on to the culture inside of the workplace, and this is why it's important for us to create the right workplace environment, the right sort of connection between teams and companies and all of that sort of stuff. And on these sites now, we've got a lot of contractors on different sites. it's really, really important that the type of communication and the type of culture and the type of environments that we're creating, that'll manage it to a degree where people are, if we're in a team together, if I've had a few, or you might know that I've might have got a sponsor or something, you come up to me and say, hey, don't blow it for us, man. We've got that respect amongst each other. And this is what I was touching on earlier, Lance, about, like I say, we've got predominantly males that are in lead positions in a lot of these mine sites and whatnot, or inside of the industry. They're going to have to be the ones that manage these conversations. And the only way that we're going to avoid, for those people that love having alcohol and that in the industry, the only way that we're going to probably avoid that ultimately is that conversation is continuously managed. And that might be conversation reminders down at the wet mess, where they pull it up. It might be a weekly reminder. Hey, we want to encourage healthy drinking options, as a reminder, because we don't want these things to disappear, as opposed to, that's the 4-can limit or a 6-can limit. We open them up at the bar. See you later. We come back. Somebody fucks it up for everybody, and then they go, you know what? We've tried this for too long. It's gone. Yeah. We've got to be able to manage it in between, because that'll cause other types of conversations. But it's going to be an ongoing thing. But ultimately, there's a certain element of responsibility for us as workers to have chats with our work friends, or to report those sorts of things as well, so that we can avoid alcohol being fully removed. And again, like I say, I don't drink, but just because I don't doesn't mean everybody else shouldn't as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good points there. And all right, so we're going to have a lot of people watching this who have never been in the mining industry before. They're potentially now shit scared about getting in of all the media coverage that they're seeing about rapists left, right, and center, or whatever. But okay, on a serious note, okay, what are your best tips or your best advice for somebody brand new to the industry, like when it comes to maintaining a good mental health on site?
Yeah, so what they've got to, a couple of important things that they really have to put in place is they've got to have conversations starting at home. Now, the conversations starting at home is that they have to be absolutely clear about what type of roster that they're going to be on. So what this means, I'm getting a calendar out and saying, right, these are the times based upon the roster that I've been given. And sometimes, as you know, for those that are coming into the industry, you're not going to be with a particular crew that you might start with. They'll adjust your rosters and you might have to shift. But it's important that in your home life, for your life outside of the workplace and the industry, is that you're clear on the times that you're either going to be at work or not going to be at work. It's going to have an immediate impact straight away on your life. So it's great to get clear about how that roster is going to impact you. Be clear on the types of structures for going to the airport and stuff like that. What days you're going to be traveling, what times you're going to be coming home, so you're aware of all of those sorts of things that are taking place as well too, so it doesn't negatively impact you. Lance, can I just pull it up there? I just have to grab something.
Yeah, mate.
Yep. Yeah, and so some of the other things, just as well as checking those times when you're flying and coming back, and that, Alana, is also with your friends, sharing it with your friend circle, because some people not everybody's in a relationship as well, but letting your friend circle know the type of swing that you're going to have. It's so important. Making sure that you're prepared to come to site with your toiletries and the types of things that you like. I know that you might be away only for an 8-6 roster, or a 2-2, or a 2-1. A lot of the new starters are coming in on 2-1 rosters as well too. Is to make sure that you've got the things that are the creature comforts of home as much as you can, and particularly for ladies as well. It's always important. Those types of things. I'm not sure what ladies' products, I'll just say as such, but making sure those things are definitely present for you when you're going to site. And when you traverse up the site, one of the things to realise is that not every site is going to be organised. Not every site is going to have somebody there to welcome you. Quite often I've been to sites and I see somebody looking around, they're like a deer in the headlights, and I say, you're a new starter. Oh yeah, I am. You can normally tell by the new uniform, and sometimes people aren't there to greet them. And so the onboarding process might be vastly different off-site than it is when you actually get the site. These are all sort of factors that people are aware of. For those, touching back on our medication for our mental health and stuff like that, make sure that you've got your medications all sorted before you get to site as well. Again, it's going to alleviate it. Yeah. Look, it's important, because I just recently was on a site and somebody hadn't had their bipolar medication, and they had to literally get them off site to be able to get medication and that, so it becomes important. But yeah, making sure you're having those conversations as well. It's going to reduce your anxiety going up the site or worrying about those sorts of things. Again, you know, the declaration of any of those sorts of medications, prescribed medications, are not going to negatively impact or affect a drug and alcohol test. So these are things that you can share with on site. It's actually encouraged to share anyway. But these are little things that are going to help you, you know, to be able to traverse through, you know, initially getting to site and stuff like that. You're going to meet a whole lot of different people and a whole lot of different personalities, man. It's like the whole world of personalities is sometimes being put into a shoebox.
Yeah,
into the
ain't
one
that
site.
true?
Yeah, and you get all sorts of different types of people from different types of backgrounds. Don't ever be afraid to ask a question. I was recently with one of the old mining guys. He's been in the mining industry for 40 years, and he said the stupid question is the one that's never asked. So remember that, you know, don't ever feel intimidated that you don't ask questions or that you feel silly at all. It's important for you to ask questions. And quite often, a lot of people are quite willing to be able to share those different things. Now, part of that, which makes it effective for you to be able to know and understand what happens on different sites, is that you listen well. Please, I'll be straight with some people. Fucking listen. Because there's a lot of people that go up into these industries and their mouth goes before their ears go. Yeah. And it's important that you're taking in information, because things that people share, especially for those that have been there a while, are there to support you and to be able to help you. You know, it's a lot of stuff to digest and take in. When you get to site, there's often inductions that are taking place, and there's a lot of sitting around at different times. It can be vastly different to the jobs that you've had in the metropolitan area and stuff like that. You know, there's a process. They don't just rush you into it. You know, there's a structure and a responsibility of safety, which is something that you'll find as an absolute positive in the industry, is the approach to safety that takes place right throughout the FIFO industry. So you can expect to a degree that your onboarding or your arrival to site is going to be a bit of a slow process. It's not going to be, you know, you hit the ground running. This is what they employed me for. So there's your uniform, you get into it. You know, it's important that they get people that shadow you. You might have a buddy system where you go to. You've normally got to have training and get passed out to be able to drive LVs, or you'll hear the term LVs, light vehicles, or HVs, heavy vehicles. And there's going to be a whole change of different types of languages that you're going to be introduced to things like Take Fives and workplace, I forget what they're called now, inspections, workplace inspections. Yeah. These are sheets that you fill out to make sure that your area is safe and identify hazards. The pre-starts on vehicles, and that you're going to have JHAs or JSAs, whatever term that they use, you know, where you're going to be reviewing a whole lot of paperwork. And so there's a lot to really, really take in. So it becomes extremely important that you ask questions. And I say to ask questions because we don't want you to internalize these things. And, you know, the worst thing that you could probably do is try and go to a place and try and prove yourself by just trying to do things that you're unsure about. We had a saying on Barrow Island amongst our crew that if in doubt, get out. And by that, it was mean just stop. You know, if anything inside of you is doubting or you're questioning anything inside of the industry, just stop. Literally just stop. Ask is the encouragement. There is enough experience on site to be able to give you the answer about any question that you would have from anybody about the work environment. That's one of the things that you've got to tap into. You don't go to a site like this or an industry like that, the FIFO industry, and try and prove yourself by doing deeds, because when things go pear-shaped, they have a whole process in place where they'll investigate everything. Safety is so important that it affects and impacts the whole work site. It can affect and impact companies as well too. So it's really important that you're asking as many questions as you can and really listening powerfully, you know, getting connected to the right people. You'll get introduced to the right people up on site as well, and you'll find your click. I mean, there's people that you're going to gravitate to and really connect with, and others that you're not necessarily going to gravitate to. But you know, the important thing is to know and understand that there's either a person or a group of people that's there for every single type of person that enters the FIFO industry. And it's an industry that can be extremely rewarding. I know that we've talked about a number of topics today that are quite confronting. The reality of life, which Alana pointed out to too, is that a lot of the aspects of a lot of things that we had conversations around today exist in our normal life here down in, you know, in the city or the country or wherever it is that we come from. It's no different. The point is that these types of behaviors will show up wherever there are human beings at different times. So we don't want you to be intimidated, because the absolute majority, and for a lot of the experience that people have, is that many of the things that we've discussed aren't necessarily present in those workplaces at all. You've got great environments that I get to experience myself. I cover the 18 mine sites that I do across Australia, and absolutely many of them are great, safe environments, great bunches of people, people that are there like you and me, that have goals and dreams and aspirations, financially rewarding. It can literally change the course of your life. It can open up an opportunity for you to be able to introduce family into an industry that's really rewarding. A lot of people that are connected to the FIFO industry, if they're not on the qualified sort of engineer side, or well, there's a place for everybody. For many people that are considered unskilled labor, they've been able to carve out successful careers for themselves and go on to own houses, cars, and train themselves as pilots and stuff like this, do all sorts of incredible things because of the reward that they get from the FIFO industry. So it is most definitely and absolutely an industry that is rewarding, and one that can alter the course of your life in a massive and positive way.
Definitely. And just remember that your first swing will suck. Right, it's always the hardest swing. You've got to get used to this and that, and everyone, and the procedures and all that sort of stuff. And you don't know people, so find your tribe. That's what I always say to people. Go out there, don't segregate yourself. Find the people who you click with, make your mates, because you'll make the best mates that will be with you for life when you work in the mines. That's what I found anyway. I'm sure you too, yeah, Leon?
Oh, hey, our friendship's a reflection of that, Alana. That's, what you're saying is absolutely true.
Definitely. So, yeah, Leon, look, is there anything else? We've got 10 minutes left. What is the last thing you want to partake with people regarding mental health in the mining industry, or just whatever? Anything, any cool stories?
Yeah, look, I was just going to say, around our mental health and being able to manage where we're at inside of whatever site that we're on, or inside of life, and the encouragement out of the sessions that I create is always, take a look today about, with where life is, as I touched upon at the start, is that there's aspects of life that are going really, really good for all of us. And, whatever is going good, have a look at what you have in place to ensure that particular part of life is showing up good. Make sure you keep those structures in place for the things that you've got to work on in life. Really take a look at what's going on there. As I touched on, for those that are in relationships, and that questioning whether the relationship for them is the right relationship that they're in. Be brutally honest with yourself. And I say brutally honest, not from the place of self-sabotage as well, when we're criticizing ourselves, but it's like, hey, is this working or is it not working? Is the manner in which I'm communicating myself inside of my relationship, or my partner communicates to me, effective for our relationship to be healthy, or to even look like it can be healthy? Or is this the cause of it staying the way that it is? If those sorts of things are showing up, then we've got to make changes. There's the in-between stuff in life, which is sort of might need some work on it, or we might need to adjust it back the other way. Whatever it is that you're dealing with in life, the best way to look at it is from a place where you're not being self-critical or self-sabotaging by staying inside of your head at any time. Look at what you can change up or change out. For me, as I shared, I took some vices out of my life with drinking and doing drugs and shit like that. It disappeared a whole lot of stuff inside of what shows up in my life now. Definitely, a whole lot of drama has been disappeared. But also look at the structures of people that you have around you. Look at the structure of whether exercise and the way that you eat is present, to be able to manage yourself. A big thing is the communication, and that's a big focus of what I do in life all the time. And just to extend on that too, Lance, what I do is that I measure and read communication on all sites. I look at it like a formula, and this is what I create with some of the groups, especially with the leadership stuff that I do with some of the companies. Is when I step into these workplaces, I'm having a look at the communication that exists inside of that workplace like a formula, and I'm seeing whether different ways of communication are effective or working for us, or whether they're not. Some of the way we communicate has got to be gone. Sometimes we've got to add something in. Some of it, as an example, might be a lack of acknowledgement. Nobody says thanks to me or for the work that we do, whether it be in work or at home in a relationship. You don't acknowledge me. So, oh shit, to make or transform that environment to a positive environment, I've got to add acknowledgement into it. So I'm acknowledging you. Hey, Lana, thank you for the work that you've done in committing to this website, to this forum that we have, and the opportunity to be able to, drive that forward and share conversations like this as an example of an acknowledgement as well. So making sure, for me, I'm reading these types of communication that exist. And then if we take that sort of context in life, have a look at the way that you think, the way that you observe conversations. What's your contribution to conversations look like when you communicate? How do you leave people in your communication? What shows up in a room when you show up in a room? What's showing up in your life right now around you? Is there drama? Some people in life, oh, so-and-so, nothing but drama shows up around them. One of the things that I realized, one of the things I realized in life, Alana, is that for every problem I had in life, there was a common denominator.
You.
And the common denominator, what was that?
You.
Yeah, fucking me. I've never missed a problem I've had yet. I've been there for all of them.
Yeah, and we all know that person who's like, there's constant shit going on. It's like, for God's sakes, take some responsibility of your own life, So 100% agree.
Well, some people don't know how to because of their upbringing and stuff like that, to take responsibility in the past, might cause violence to be, brought upon them and stuff like that. So there's a lot of factors that, that go into why people are the way that they are. But, in the comfort of where you're at in your own mind and in your own life, and that, take the opportunity to always measure your mental well-being, see where things are at. Up on site, sometimes a few beers or a few wines helps. Sometimes it doesn't. We're monitoring things like that. Sometimes I'm going to change my sleep patterns around. Sometimes I'm going to change my friend circles around, and all of these things, in a constant sort of revision. And these are things that I do on the daily as daily practices to make sure I show up the way that I show up. Outside of that, enjoy the experience inside of the FIFO industry as well too. I just want to make a declaration too on this video, Alana, and that's for all our ladies inside of our industry. I get to go to 18 different mine sites currently with the role that I'm in. I'll be able to visit more too, because I've got other people that are interested in engaging me as well too. But for whatever site that I go to, if you follow me on LinkedIn or on Facebook and that, I'm a stand for all females, and all females are safe on all sorts of mine sites. There is not a person, there is not a company, there is not anything inside of our industry that has me fear anybody or anything. I don't give a fuck whether I lose my job for standing for somebody. In fact, I would walk away more proud of myself and more honored to have lost my job to stand for the life of somebody, especially our females that have been made to feel unsafe or bullied or sexually exploited inside of our industry. So my promise to all females is that whenever I'm on site, or if you see and follow me and you know that I'm going to a site, there might be somebody that's dealing with something there that they might not have shared, have them connect with me. I want you to know that I'm a safe space to be able to have these conversations. I previously was a union organizer as well, so I'm absolutely aware of the process that it takes to get things to the Fair Work Commission and all of those sorts of elements, inside of the workplace. But what I want you to know is that, like me, there's many other men that are willing to keep ladies safe inside of our industry. But I want myself to be known as that man, no matter where I am. So please share that message up there as well.
Absolutely. And Leon, I will just say this as well. I've worked on crews where there's just guys, and I love those crews probably more than the mix was. I probably shouldn't be saying that, but there are so many amazing men on site. So yeah, like yourself, at the end of the day, there are the good ones and the bad ones wherever you go. So just make sure you connect with the good ones and just stay out of the drama. Hey. That's what I think. Yeah,
that's it. Look after yourself always. But outside of that, keep doing what we're doing. It's a great industry to be a part of.
Hell yeah. And Leon, thank you so much for coming on here, even with our little communication issues, and giving me your time on a Saturday. You psycho. Leon, now, where can people find you or get in contact with you besides LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I've got a couple of spots left here on Facebook. I've got a personal page and then a professional page there. Outside of that, you'll find me, man, on mine sites. Just reach out. That's the biggest thing, is probably on social medias or through LinkedIn. If anybody wants to engage me or anybody wants to talk and have conversations, I'm more than willing to encourage people. I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about our industry. I want people to get home safe to their families. So yeah, find me on all of those sorts of platforms. Outside of that, I'll make sure that I keep myself present, even on our page here as well too.
Yeah, definitely. And look, thank you so much. I'll be definitely getting you back to have another chat, even if it's about whatever. So if you're watching and you want to hear from the great Leon, let us know, like drop some comments or whatever. What do you want to hear about? Like, or who do you want to hear about? We can get pretty much anyone. So yeah, Leon, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully there's people that have heard this that can take some of this on. And the main thing, reach out if they need any help with anything in the industry.
Thanks so much for having me, Lana. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks, buddy. Bye.